Just sitting there with like their fingers in the dirt, just like sucking it up.
Ooh.
Nitrogen.
I'm totally full from all of that dirt I ate. I mean, dessert I ate.
Just that was good.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons and Dragons fix. I'm Ellie.
Jared Bornagle.
And I'm Will Melden.
And on this episode, we are taking a look at the Bodytaker Plans from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. And yeah, big old plant monster. We'll obviously talk more in detail, but I'm excited when there's big old plant monsters because the plant enemy type is not a common one, and this thing's scary.
It's extremely uncommon, and that's extremely unfortunate because I don't know what it is about plants being malicious in any way that just like preys on some primal fear that we all have. It's not like a common thing for plants to just like pop out of the woods.
It's because we were at the age to have grown up with Jumanji, and that those had really like sentient attacking plants, and it just got stuck with us.
It only makes sense.
Yeah.
So today we were talking about the Bodytaker plant. These mysterious, malicious vegetations that are known as Bodytaker plants seek to become the dominant form of life wherever they appear. They're an invasive organism that subvert whole societies by consuming individuals and replacing them with duplicates called Podlings. Bodytaker plants view themselves as perfect organisms and seek to dominate the lands where they grow. To their minds, a world would be healthier and more efficient were they in control. Anyone who disagrees either lacks perspective or is fit to serve only as fertilizer. So this is not a plant that has no goals. This is a motivated plant. Where it comes from can be very up to your game, what you want to decide on. A wizard created it. It came down from the stars. It was a random happenstance of evolution, and it's become more intelligent than most people with an int of 14. Mm-hmm. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, I do love seeing a plant that has like political goals.
Yes.
Evil goals. I mean, it's a fascist plant, basically.
Yep. What's interesting, though, is that this is around a time when they took away anything on the stat block that indicated an alignment. So it is just a huge plant. It is not considered evil. You have to discern that yourself, that the plant that wants to take over and become the dominant life form is evil. Like, we just got to clear that up. No response with that. Great. So challenge rating of 7. We have an armor class of 16, HP of 92, and then a speed of 10 feet normal movement, 10 feet of climbing, and 10 feet swim speed, which probably will throw your players off a little bit if they're expecting this to be a plant that is entirely stationary.
Oh, hey, what do you know?
To give some context, I used this monster in our recent game, and when the players decided, hey, let's just run away from it because it's a plant, it has a movement speed. Definitely threw him for a spook.
Mm-hmm. You could still outrun it, but it just kind of, in terms of how it was all set up, where most of us got away except for one person who was 30 feet away, and then was able to uproot and move 10 feet and then get him, and then we had to fight it anyways.
Now that's good encounter design. Mm-hmm. So
stat-wise, exactly where we stood and everything.
Stat-wise, we've got an 18 strength for +4, dex -1, con +5, intelligence +2, wisdom +2, and then charisma +4. Very charismatic plant. Also has damage vulnerabilities to poison. One that I think most people would overlook, but not us, because we played Pokemon, and we know that poison is strong against grass types.
I did not know that, actually. I never got into Pokemon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Will, you were a Pokemon kid?
I was a Pokemon kid.
Not having to admit it.
There were so few grass Pokemon, and poison Pokemon were garbage, so it didn't matter. Just get a fire Pokemon.
Right, that's generally the answer, but that doesn't work here because it does not have a damage vulnerability to fire. My assumption is that it's vulnerable to poison. I mean, I see why later on in the stat block it's kind of baked into this creature, but poison can be strong against plants because weed killer. It's kind of obvious.
Okay.
Yeah. Once I saw that connection, it was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Where in the stat block does it talk about weed killer?
It doesn't talk about weed killer. It talks about poison.
Oh, okay.
That's all. Condition immunities to blinded, charmed, frightened, and prone. Has blind sight out to 120 feet. For languages, it knows deep speech and telepathy. Is deep speech what? Where does that normally come from?
Aliens.
Is it okay? So it's just the generic alien language.
Yeah, like aberrations.
Is it, or is that the Underdark? No, that's Undercommon.
That's Undercommon, yeah.
Right. Okay.
But I believe the Star Spawn.
I think deep speech. Yeah, I think deep speech is the, like kind of like the primordial, like the Elgitor stuff, like the Great Old Ones. I think that's deep speech.
Yes, and I just looked up the Star Spawns do have deep speech as well. So
yeah, they just kind of give it to anything that's sort of unworldly and alien and
all the aliens just got together and they're like, should we just speak the same language? It'd be much more convenient. And they're like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
What do we have in common?
That's kind of what everyone they were common. Yeah,
that's a fair point
for the most part. I love having I'm loving everything about like the lore and everything of this plant, where it's not just like it's a plant monster, it's a plant with magic and it eats people to eat or whatever. It's like it's intelligent, it has telepathy, it has grand plans. This giant ass plant could be the big bad evil guy of your campaign. Maybe not a whole campaign, but definitely like the main boss of like an encounter. You go to a village and shit's going down and things are weird.
Yeah, it reminds me
it's kind of like a spin of the Oblak.
There you go.
Yeah. That was an old episode.
It was, which I guess I'll link to.
I sometimes feel shame linking old episodes. Like, nah, don't just, that was real old.
The monster
talks
are still good.
Don't listen to that one.
So yeah, this one, I mean, it's definitely not going to hide in the middle of a town like the well, I guess it probably won't. Like an Oblex is kind of able to, be in a home and run everything it wants to outside of that. But it could be on the edge of the forest. It could be, actually, now that I'm saying this, it could be like a thing you come into a town and the town's like very prideful of their plant. They're like, oh, this is our amazing plant. And they don't call it a Bodytaker plant because that would kind of spill the beans pretty quickly. But this is our Genesis plant. And then everyone's like, ooh, interesting. And then, you come to find out that everybody's a podling. But we'll get to some of that as we go through the stat block. So starting off here with some passive abilities, we have the Podling Link. The plant can see through and communicate telepathy with any of its podlings within 10 miles of it. So it can be pretty far away, to be honest, if it needs to. Rejuvenation. When the plant dies, it returns to life in the place where it died 1d12 months later, unless the ground where it took root is sown with salt or soaked with poison.
Weed killer. That's where you got that from. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Then we have unusual nature. The plant doesn't require sleep. That, I guess, makes sense. Most plants don't. But hey, this one, who knows?
With the rejuvenation, there is a flavor text line about how it has deep roots spreading near invisible filaments through the soil. Should any of these fibers survive the plant's destruction, then it regrows from that. That's where the salting and poisoning the soil comes from. You're destroying those filaments. Yeah. Which is very weed like for anybody who's had a garden or had to ever do weeding. It's like you rip it out, a lot of weeds just come right back. It's a weed killer, but then you feel bad because you got a dog, or you killed all the plants around it, or you just feel bad spraying poison in the ground.
I'm trying to just let all of the weeds grow and just accept what grows and let nature reclaim my space. Yeah, basically.
Usually cities have something to say about that.
Not if you just keep it short. They don't care.
Okay, that's fair.
You just run your lawnmower over it. Yeah, they don't care. It all looks the same.
Sure.
So then we have some actions here. The multi-attack is the plant makes 3 Vine Lash attacks. The Vine Lash is a +7 to hit with a 20-foot reach against one target. Does 2d6 + 4 slashing damage, and if the target is a creature, it is grappled with a DC of 15 to escape. Until the grapple ends, the target is restrained, my favorite type of grappled. The plant has 4 vines, each of which can grapple one target. A little bit weird that it has 4 vines, but makes 3 Vine Lash attacks. In my head, it uses that 4th one to push itself, and that's how it moves. just kind of
Okay.
moving along the ground. That's all I've got.
I think it's probably just for balance reasons, but sure, you could
If they
totally do
wanted
that.
balance reasons, then it could have just been 2d4 plus 4, and then it could have done 4.
Yeah.
It
Well,
doesn't matter.
it's the being able to. So 3 is a lot, anyways. It's a decent amount of damage. Nothing crazy, but being able to, in theory, grapple and restrain the 3 members of the party is pretty frightening.
That's true. That's true. So once it has somebody grappled, or I guess just as long as somebody's within 5 feet, more importantly, it can do its entrapping pod, which is another +7 to hit, reach of 5 feet against one medium or smaller creature grappled by the plant. And it has 4d8 plus 4 acid damage. The target is pulled into the plant's space and enveloped by the pod, and the grapple ends. While enveloped, the target is restrained and it has total cover against attacks and effects originating outside the pod. The enveloped target must also immediately succeed on a DC 16 con saving throw or be stunned by the plant's sapping enzymes until it is removed from the pod or the plant dies. The enveloped target doesn't require air and gains 1 level of exhaustion for each hour it spends in the pod. If the target dies while enveloped, it immediately emerges from the pod as a living podling, wearing or carrying all of the original creature's equipment. Still got more. As an action, a creature within 5 feet of the Bodytaker plant, that is outside the pod can open the pod and pull the target free with a successful DC 15 strength check. If the plant dies, the target's no longer restrained and can escape from the pod by spending 10 feet of movement, exiting prone. The plant has 1 pod, which can envelop 1 creature at a time.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, there's initial damage when you get stuck in there.
From it hitting, just from it hitting in general.
Right, yeah, so it rolls to hit to put it in the pod.
Yep.
I guess. Okay. Does some damage. There's exactly 1 save to be stunned, and if you pass that, you are not stunned.
Correct.
Right? But you're not able to get yourself out unless you have
no
magic.
No rules for getting yourself out.
Right, okay. But every hour you gain a level of exhaustion, so in 6 hours you would just die.
Right.
Or is it 5?
Nope, it's 6.
It's 6. Okay, yeah, 6 hours. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit weird wording and just execution. I feel like other things that swallow players have different rules. I mean, there's usually something about, if you do damage while inside of it, it has the chance of spitting you back up. The fact that there's 1 DC 16 con saving throw or you're stunned and that's it seems a little bit strange to me. That would usually be a save at the start of your turn, and then every turn you can make another save or something like that.
The issue there is if you do pass, like it's the worst case scenario for the Bodytaker plant. You have 6 hours where it can't hurt you, and you can just keep stabbing it over and over with a dagger.
Right. Yeah, you could just got nuts in there.
Which is why to me it should be a save when you start your turn there, regardless. Like, because it just says you must immediately succeed on a DC 16 saving throw or be stunned, and that's really it. I mean, a commoner, when you actually do the math of they've got 10, they need to get a 16. Okay, in 6 hours they're going to succeed and not be stunned. They still probably can't punch the Bodytaker to the point that it'll do damage.
A commoner is gonna not survive the 48 plus 4 acid damage.
That's a good point.
So
they're just not.
Yeah. So I mean, this thing could create a podling every round, basically.
Oh, geez.
Because it's an immediate. It puts it in, the commoner dies, it's a podling.
Yeah, that's a good point. That would actually be really interesting for an encounter setup to have. I'm just imagining the party thinks that they're fighting some bandits, let's say, and then as the bandits get really close to death, you just see this thing just pop out and just yoink, grab one of the bandits, throws it inside, and now it's wait, what are we fighting?
Yeah, that's really cool. In terms of this happening to your party, it's unless the 22, the 48 plus 4 damage kills them, I don't think they're going to be turned into podlings unless there's been a TPK. And then that point doesn't really matter. Because it's so slow, it's not going to be able to run away with the party member, and everyone's trying to desperately hunt them down in the 6 hours before they die. Because just 10 feet. It's not going anywhere.
And the 48 plus 4 doesn't even have to kill you. It just has to get you to 0. Because then you're making death saving throws while inside. And that's exactly what happened when you all fought it, actually, was the 48 plus 4 damage brought your bard to 0 HP. But you had tons of ways of getting them out. It was not going to be a immediate thing or anything. But
and we also had no idea this was happening.
Right. Officially, if they had failed their 3 saving throws, I'd have had to made them a podling. That would have been an interesting turn to the game, I assume.
Yes, it would have.
Or would it have been? It would have been. But
they'd have just started liking plants.
We should probably talk about the podlings a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
So the stat block about them isn't all that interesting. They do a slam attack, but they have the semblance of life where even though they've been made into these like pod plant creatures that serve the Bodytaker plant, they are indistinguishable from who they once were. They're not like zombies. They're not green. They're not covered in vines or anything like that. They have their memories and stuff like that. It takes a high insight check for somebody to be able to tell that they're not who they say they are. And it's because like little discrepancies will show through and things like that. So there's definitely a lot of unique things you could do with that. You could be dealing with a podling and have no idea about it.
Yeah, the only way that you'll know is that there are some unique podling behaviors, and this gives you a D6 table, but I feel like this is another time where it's like just use them all, or like a couple of them if you are running a setup where a town is podlings or something like that. But they're pretty great. So the first one is the podling abandons the habits and hobbies of the creature it's mimicking. 2 is the podling lavishes affection on plants and views house plants with excessive sympathy. 3, the podling relishes exposing its skin to the sun. It resents clothing and hair. 4, the podling often reacts as if some unseen force is speaking to it, staring into the distance or nodding. 5, the podling often communicates to other podlings using deep speech. 6, the podling no longer understands the nuances of a relationship, system, or instrument.
Number 2 is totally one of our party members.
We have a plant druid, basically. So that's how they've been acting this entire time in the campaign. So maybe they're a podling. That would explain it all, right?
It would be an interesting take.
It would.
Or I was thinking, like, if our party member who got into the pod, if they actually did fail the death saving throws and return into a podling, going along with it, don't give them a new character. Pull them aside to see if the person, and obviously, so like apply to any party. Just see if the player is cool with that idea, because it's still you. And I would just play like you still have your stat block and abilities. You can still level up character levels, but you're kind of your motivations obviously shift.
Sure.
And see how long it takes for the party to figure it out. I do wonder what happens to the podlings when the Bodytaker plant dies.
It says, actually, in Semblance of Life. Yeah, the podling melts into a slurry when it dies, when the Bodytaker plant that created it dies, or when the Bodytaker plant dismisses it.
Oh.
But at the same time, you might think you killed the Bodytaker plant, but I would argue, just for the sake of fun, if you wanted to do that the rejuvenation, unless the party actually salt or soaked it with poison, whatever, to fully kill the Bodytaker plant, I would say their podlings are fine, and they're basically laying dormant until the Bodytaker plant comes back, which is even better in this situation. Totally. Because you could have it be for 1 or 2 months the party member has changed personality, but their goals are still the same, and then 2 months later the Bodytaker plant comes back, and now they're different. Something changes. They feel compelled to go back to where the Bodytaker plant was. They feel compelled to do whatever it is that the Bodytaker plant wants.
Yeah, that could be pretty cool. Again, getting the players buy-in, obviously, otherwise just like, all right, that player's dead. Make a new one. I can kind of see not wanting to play like a doomed character like that.
Yeah, I could see not wanting to, but also I could see that being amazing. So
yeah. Or like, hell, you're the PCs. You got the plot armor. You're the special ones. They resist it. Like there's enough of their force of personality and their memories and their goals and ambitions and drives that they're able to resist the call of the body taker plants, and they come to terms with like, yeah, I'm like a plant monster now, but I'm my own plant monster. And then they're dealing with like that voice in their head of trying to bring them to evil to serve the body taker plants, and sometimes they give in and other times they fight it and stick with the party.
That would be really neat. And they're
Sounds like a good origin for the spore druid.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not kind of. Yes, that does sound
Yes.
like a good origin. And their type would change to a plant. Their creature type would go from humanoid to plant. Maybe give them a vulnerability to poison.
Sure.
Just because, hey, here's something different.
Yeah, that could be cool.
And then probably throw a feat or two on that makes them feel more plant-like. I don't think there's any here that I could specifically any things on here that you could just like take and easily give as a feat. Like sometimes that
Plant-like
can
nature.
work.
You can survive off of nothing but sunlight, dirt, and water.
I mean, that's more flavor though.
Yeah. Well, that would be kind of cool though.
Yeah, that's part
like
of
they
being
specifically don't eat. Like it's the thing, like if they eat, they get sick from it, so they don't eat. It's not like they don't need to eat. They can't eat. They can't sleep.
That'd be so great as you're trying to hide it from your party. It's like you're all sitting around eating a meal and they eat it and then they just have to go and just, I don't know, go into the garden. Just feel like, all right, just center yourself. It'll be fine.
Right.
Just sitting there with like their fingers in the dirt, just like sucking it up.
Ooh.
Nitrogen.
I'm totally full from all of that dirt I ate. I mean, dessert I ate.
Just... that was good.
So yeah, the podlings say, that sounds interesting. Again, the right character. I'm sure a lot of people would be like, I had plans for this character and had nothing to do with being a plant. So no, I'm either going to just let them die or can we figure something else out? That's fine.
Right.
But this would definitely be a unique twist that you just kind of don't. One of those, I know we're talking about it as if it's like a thing you set up, but one of those things that happens naturally that's just like, wow, I can't believe this is where our campaign went.
Yeah. And then they would have this weird, unique dynamic of, even if going the route of it's the origin, they resist the call of the plant, not wanting this body taker plant to die and feeling like, because if the body taker plant dies, the character dies.
Yeah.
And so that could create some neat, unique and cool dynamics.
Just imagine
like the DM would have to kind of set up scenarios, but
I just imagine putting a fence up around the body taker plant. Just like,
right.
Like just randomly in the woods, you just come across this like gated off fence and just says like, please don't step on plants. You're like, what is in there? It's like, just don't go in there.
Right.
Somebody's trying to protect their body taker plant. In terms of, I guess, encounter design, as well as just general setups, I mean, we talked about using the Oblex as inspiration or kind of like a plant parallel of just something that has taken over the town. The way that I used it was for just I won't say a random encounter, but for just a fight, more or less, where some other creatures had been convinced by the body taker, and this isn't stuff you all obviously knew, but whatever, we'll drop the veil. Some just fey creatures, some devilkin had been convinced by the body taker plant to basically run a scheme where they would lure creatures into the body taker's area to then let the body taker attack, and then the devilkin could reap the rewards, whatever they may be. So what I did is I had the devilkin basically show up. The party's like, wow, look at this fight. Okay, this is going to be pretty straightforward. Killed them in like 2 rounds. And then when they went to go retrieve the body basically of the last one, body taker plant popped out and the real fight basically began at that point. So that's obviously one way to handle it. Just using, again, that idea that these things are intelligent. These things can be convincing. These things can have plans to get people to it. It is almost like a trap in a way. And it can lay traps.
Yeah, and I could see, like I said, it would be kind of silly as like the big bad evil guy of the campaign, but definitely a minion of one convinced to work with somebody. They get more podlings and maybe the body taker plant things. Eventually, they'll be able to overcome that person, but they're kind of working together as is right now. And so then the main villain has this army of podlings under their control, things like that.
Yeah, and there's
Which
also
could be
no
cool.
reason that you can't, if you did really want to make this the big bad, you can always beef this stat block up a little bit. I mean, that's really the only thing holding it back from being more of a boss, giving it some
Sure.
legendary actions, giving it some legendary resistances and more health and whatever, and you've got yourself a boss fight.
Yeah. Or just run
need-
the planet in Mass Effect 1.
Which part is that?
Or you have to throw, you like can
I'm
choose to
blanking
like
on
murder so many people or like use stun grenades.
Yeah, you go to a colony on, I think it's the Krogan's old homeworld, where it's just like wrecked, and it's Tachanka. Maybe it's not that, but they definitely, you go to like some colony and it's like this wrecked planet, and they're all acting a little weird, and then you discover there's this like ancient sentient, like I think it was like a fungus, not so much a plant, there that was infecting them all and enthralling them all to their ways, and you had they were like, kill this ancient creature that's just kind of like surviving and doing its thing, or let him go. But I don't remember the nuances.
That's good enough.
There was like a moral choice to it, but yeah,
I think the big
it was
moral choice was
absolutely.
the person who wasn't enthralled is like, hey, we have stun grenades. Can you use this? And then Renegade Shep's like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that
remember
was
that.
Gunning
it.
down
That was
villagers.
it. Yeah.
remember
You're going
that.
back through the village, the encampment, and yeah, everyone's attacking you because they're enthralled. And yeah, it's like, hey,
So
we
that does-
shouldn't kill them. And
No,
like,
this
nah.
actually does bring up something good, though, because the Podlings are a stat block to fight. I mean, that is why they're there. So once the party realizes that these are actual people, there's going to be the question of, can we bring them back? And they're not going to know, based on the stat block right now, how it's read, that if they die, they're going to turn into a slurry. And you don't have to have that happen either. You could give them the stun grenade out and say, the wizard over the town over noticed this, and I've been preparing this special thing. And if you do this, all of your attacks are going to be resistant. Like, everything that you do, it'll do half damage, but we might be able to save them later. And now your players kind of have this choice of, okay, are we going to take the easy way out or the hard way? And, if you kill everybody in the town, then that's a lot of loot. So, questions.
I think that's the other weakness. There's the two weaknesses I see. The first is that the Bodytaker plant has like a great opening, and then just nothing. It's like it's an action burner. It can grab everybody and eat somebody, and everything is an action to stop that. But it can't really do anything without, like, say, dropping you again. So it's like dropping and restraining. It could use like a bind kind of thing. And the other thing is that the Podlings don't do anything. I think you'd be much better off turning specific NPCs into NPC Podlings.
Yes, I agree. Like, do like a bandit captain stat block has some podling traits to it, things like that. Yeah,
that's a really good point. And you really don't have to do anything. You can just give it semblance of life,
right,
which is more for flavor than anything. And then just use their initial stat block, give it immunity to charmed and frightened, and give it blind sight out to 30 feet. And there you go. You've got yourself a podling.
Yeah.
Or podling.
I'd give them a fear of
captain.
fire. I don't think that was one of the flavor things. I think that would be like a good universal one. Give them fire vulnerability, because most plant type monsters have that. And then give the podlings this like really strong fear of fire.
Sure. I guess that's tough, because the Bodytaker plant doesn't have vulnerability to poison, and the podling doesn't have any vulnerabilities.
Or to fire, but yeah.
To either.
He's
Sorry.
Poison, yeah.
Yes, it does have vulnerability to poison. It does not have vulnerability to fire.
Everyone's afraid of poison, so that doesn't work.
Right, yeah.
No, get that poison away from me. What's wrong with you? You some kind of plant?
Oh no, they're on to me.
A warm-blooded, red-blooded man does not enjoy some poison in the evening.
Ooh, okay. Actually, you could say that alcohol's poison, though.
Alcohol, okay.
So I mean, just to play it up, to be like, oh, this entire town doesn't drink. They don't have any poison. Ha ha ha. But yeah, you're right. The unreasonable fear of fire is one way to go about it. It's just, if you don't also give a vulnerability to fire, the party's going to be like, Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's which is I'm gonna try and keep it away from the podcast, but I've been reading Pathfinder 2, so I'm slowly being converted. Sorry, everybody. They have layers to the resistances where, or not resistances or vulnerabilities, both sides, where it's not so binary as everything does half damage or everything does double damage. That's always something that's bothered me in 5e, is because this is a perfect time to say, yeah, okay, they're more resistant to poison if you figure, more vulnerable to poison, and they're still vulnerable to fire, but nowhere near as much. But when you don't have that nuance, you just have to say, it's a plant. Everyone's going to throw fire at it. We can't do it. They just expect it too much.
That's not how it's written.
It's written as just no fire.
Yeah.
So they can't be afraid of fire. You can't change that.
But I got nothing else on this one.
Okay.
All right. Let me make one final case for the Bodytaker Plan as a scenario of people joining in a cult-like druidic, semi-sinister but not entirely sinister way, because the process of podlingification could to someone seem a bit divine. They wouldn't fully understand what's happening. This is not like the Ooblex or like a corpse flower that is deeply sinister in nature. A village could slowly succumb to this as more and more people are like, dude, you got to get potted out, bro. It's the best.
Okay. Yeah, I could totally see that. It's because the podlings are, they have the semblance of life. They're not clearly zombie-like or dead or grotesque in any way. So they seem like the same person comes out and they just start talking about how amazing this is, the enlightenment, the knowledge the plant has given me. You should all receive the knowledge of the plant.
You're taking it too far. You know what it needs to be? It's just like a spa. It's like a spa day. You go in, you sit in the Bodytaker plant for a couple hours, and then you come out and you feel great. You feel rejuvenated. It doesn't even need to be. I mean, obviously, take it whichever direction you want. Right. It can be an entire cult around it, but it doesn't even need to be as big of a thing, because this thing is charismatic. All it has to do is convince the first couple of people, and then people follow along because we're all kind of lemmings in deep down.
It's a sensory deprivation chamber.
Yes. Sensory deprivation chamber, Bodytaker plant. Yes. We just got an episode title, I think.
Okay.
Or maybe the thumbnail. That's a good thumbnail. Right. Sensory deprivation chamber plant. Yeah. I won't. I was going to use that to segue and I lost it. I was going to. It's too late.
All right. Well, I'm going to complain about the art real quick then.
Go for it.
The episode. Everything about the art makes sense. You have all the tentacles. It has more tentacles than it says it has in the art, but whatever. And then the big gaping mouth, and it has this sac at the bottom, which I assume where it holds nutrients and photosynthesizes and stuff like that. But then around the pod where it puts people are things that look like pea pods or eyes.
Yeah.
And I can't figure out what the intent of those are supposed to be. It has blind sight, so they're not eyes. It's it's blind outside of its blind sight radius, so it doesn't have eyes. And it makes no sense for these things to have pea pods, because pea pods are seeds. They get shedded off and stuff, and there's nothing about that in there.
That's because it's alien.
It's the trypophobia thing.
Trypophobia or whatever.
Trypophobia, yeah.
Yeah.
The holes. That's what
I was trying to evoke. Put in too much credit and wait. I'm sorry. What?
It looks like a lotus flower. You know what those are? The scary seed pod hole things. I think that's what they were going for.
Okay.
And it is. I mean, it is spooky. As is the thing, just sitting in there like a tongue.
That's what gets me. I don't know what the point of the creature in the center is. It's supposed to be a podling, or is this thing supposed to have a humanoid looking thing controlling it?
I assume that's a podling.
That's what I guess I thought too, but that doesn't look like a normal person.
Yeah.
As it's getting regooed, like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, it just goes to this specific weird banshee-esque view.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think I maybe put in too much credit and weight on the people who draw these, of every little aspect has a biological purpose.
Yeah, well, you know what I never put too much credit into is that you can save 10% off your dice order at Metallic Dice Games using the code MM10. never put too much credit into that, because that just keeps on giving. Because every time you order, you can use that code MM10. It helps out the show and it helps out you, and then you can get free shipping, $50. So got to put credit into that. Got to give credit where credit's due.
Great segue.
That seems sarcastic.
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening so far. And if you've enjoyed the show, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all of those things. Share it with your friends. Tell your players that just tell them like randomly, like, oh yeah, I'm going to use a monster from Monsters and Multiclass against you. And then if you have that one player who's like super big on knowing absolutely everything, even if it's metagame knowledge, they're just going to comb through our entire backlog to try and figure out which monster it is. And we would appreciate that, I guess. Maybe they'll end up liking the show while they go through that. Thank you as usual to our patrons: Ed G, Muddawait, Brian H, Craig A, Isaac M, Jeff W, Star Shinobi, Vincent M, Bob F, Joe P, Rick D, Sentinel D20, Tyler S, Gray, Barents, Adam A, Rob K, and Gray again. If you want to check out the Patreon, you can get access to the episodes at about a day early. You know, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Sometimes you get access to them after everyone else. That is not true. That would be difficult to set up, to block your access for a day, but it'd be really funny. Thanks for subscribing to our Patreon. We appreciate all of you. And yeah, also put up campaign notes as well as show notes. And if you want to support the show in other ways, you can go to monstersofmulticlass.com/support, where you can find all of our other affiliates, more than just Metallic Dice Games, and help out the show. And maybe we'll buy Will a new chair so that it stops squeaking so much. It'd be great if you could get it to squeak right there, but yeah.
I told you, this is not the squeaky chair.
Man's going dumpster diving for chairs. It's pathetic. All right. I think that's my spiel.
All right. As always, thanks for watching.